Imagine a voyage destined to make history, yet tragically etched in the annals of time for its calamity. The Titanic, a marvel of its age, embarked on a maiden journey shrouded in opulence, only to encounter a disaster as deep and chilling as the ocean's own secrets. Number 1. Maiden voyage to tragedy. The Titanic's story began with a blend of ambition and elegance. Launched from Southampton on April 10, 1912, it was a floating masterpiece, heralding a new era in luxury sea travel. This colossal vessel, stretching nearly 3 football fields in length, was designed to be the pinnacle of maritime engineering. Its destination, New York City, a beacon of modernity and progress. On board were over 2,200 souls, a microcosm of the early 20th century's social hierarchy. Wealthy industrialists, celebrities, and aristocrats occupied its opulent first-class suites, reveling in unmatched luxury. Meanwhile, immigrants filled the third class, nurturing dreams of a new life in America. The second class, often overshadowed by the extremes of its counterparts, comprised middle-class passengers, including professionals and small business owners. The Titanic's voyage was more than just a crossing. It was a symbol of human achievement, a moving testament to the era's technological advancements and social aspirations. It promised safety and speed, comfort and class. Yet unbeknownst to all those aboard, it was steering towards a tragic rendezvous that would irreversibly alter its destiny and leave an indelible mark on history. The icy waters of the North Atlantic were about to unravel the myth of the unsinkable ship, setting the stage for one of the most heart-wrenching maritime tragedies ever witnessed. Number 2. The iceberg collision. The night of April 14, 1912, unfolded under a starlit sky, the Atlantic Ocean calm and deceptively serene. The Titanic, confidently cutting through the cold waters, was nearing the midpoint of its transatlantic journey. It was a night like any other, with passengers immersed in the ship's luxurious offerings or tucked away in their cabins. But at 11:40 p.m., the narrative of the Titanic's maiden voyage took a harrowing turn. An iceberg, lurking silently in the dark waters, collided with the Titanic's starboard side. The impact, though not dramatically jolting, was catastrophic. The unsinkable ship had its hull breached, opening up 5 of its supposedly watertight compartments to the icy sea. In less than a minute, a disaster was set in motion that would become a byword for maritime catastrophe. The damage was severe, yet not immediately apparent to many on board. But the crew, quickly assessing the situation, realized the grave nature of their predicament. The Titanic, deemed an engineering marvel, was sinking. Panic began to set in as the crew and passengers slowly grasped the severity of their situation. Number 3. The lifeboat dilemma. In the wake of the collision, the Titanic faced a dire shortage of lifeboats, a miscalculation that would lead to a disastrous loss of life. Despite the ship's massive size, it was equipped with only 20 lifeboats, enough for barely half of those on board. This shortfall was a tragic consequence of outdated maritime safety regulations and overconfidence in the ship's safety features. As the gravity of the situation dawned, lifeboat deployment began. But the unfolding crisis was exacerbated by a lack of preparation and order. The crew, undertrained for such an emergency, faced confusion over the women and children first policy. This indecision and delay in loading the lifeboats compounded the unfolding tragedy. The chaotic evacuation saw lifeboats being launched partially filled, a heartbreaking testament to the lack of organization. Many passengers, particularly in the lower classes, were unaware of the gravity of the situation until it was too late. The strict class segregation on the ship impeded their access to lifeboats, with barriers and locked gates confining many to the lower decks. Number 4. The myth of the unsinkable. The Titanic, often hailed as the unsinkable ship, was a product of extraordinary engineering and an embodiment of the technological optimism of the early 20th century. Its designers and builders, Harland and Wolff of Belfast, pushed the boundaries of naval architecture with its creation. The ship boasted an advanced system of watertight compartments, and electronically operated watertight doors, features that fostered a widespread belief in its invulnerability. This confidence in the Titanic's unsinkability was more than just a marketing ploy. It reflected the era's faith in progress and technology. The ship's double-bottom hull and 16 watertight compartments were designed to close at the flick of a switch. In theory, the Titanic could stay afloat with up to 4 of these compartments flooded. However, the iceberg collision breached 5 compartments, exceeding the ship's survival threshold. The misplaced trust in the ship's safety features was compounded by other design choices. The lifeboats, as mandated by outdated maritime safety regulations, were insufficient for the number of passengers and crew. Moreover, the Titanic's lifeboats had the capacity for more than 1,178 people, yet the ship carried only 20 boats, far fewer than needed for its over 2,200 passengers and crew. Number 5. A colossal creation. The Titanic was not just a ship, it was a floating testament to the industrial might and ambition of its age. At the time of its launch, it was the largest moving object ever built, measuring 882 feet and 9 inches in length and 92 feet in breadth. Its massive hull, towering above the docks, was a sight to behold, symbolizing the pinnacle of human engineering and luxury. The ship's construction was a colossal endeavor, employing thousands of workers over 2 years. With a gross tonnage of over 46,000 tons, the Titanic was designed to be the ultimate in maritime luxury and comfort. Its engines were marvels of the industrial age, 2 massive 4-cylinder triple-expansion steam engines and a centrally placed low-pressure turbine. These powerhouses propelled the giant vessel through the Atlantic at speeds up to 23 knots. But the Titanic's grandeur wasn't just in its size and mechanics. Its interior was akin to a floating palace, adorned with opulent furnishings, intricate woodwork, and luxurious amenities. The first-class section boasted grand staircases, sumptuous cabins, and elegant dining saloons. The ship also offered unprecedented amenities such as a swimming pool, a gymnasium, and a Turkish bath, amenities unheard of on other ocean liners of the time. Number 6. A high price paid. The sinking of the Titanic was not just a maritime disaster, it was a human tragedy of immense proportions. Of the approximately 2,200 passengers and crew aboard, over 1,500 lost their lives in the icy waters of the North Atlantic. This staggering loss of life was not just a consequence of the collision with the iceberg, but also of the insufficient lifeboats and the chaotic evacuation process. The high casualty rate of the Titanic had a profound and lasting impact on maritime history. It served as a grim reminder of the importance of safety over aesthetics or luxury. The disaster led to significant changes in maritime safety regulations, including the requirement for sufficient lifeboats, improved lifeboat drills, and the establishment of the International Ice Patrol to monitor the North Atlantic for icebergs. The Titanic tragedy also highlighted the need for better communication systems on ships. The radio equipment of the era was rudimentary, and the Titanic's distress calls were not sufficiently heeded. The disaster prompted improvements in ship-to-ship and ship-to-shore communication, making the seas safer for future generations. Number 7. Social divides at sea. The Titanic disaster revealed stark social divides that were prevalent in the early 20th century. The survival rates among the passengers were heavily influenced by their class, reflecting the societal hierarchies of the time. While 62% of the first-class passengers survived, only 41% of the second class and a mere 25% of the third-class passengers were saved. This disparity was not just a matter of chance. It was a consequence of the ship's design and evacuation procedures. The third-class cabins were located on the lower decks, far from the lifeboats. Many third-class passengers found themselves trapped below decks by barriers that segregated the classes, with some gates locked during the evacuation. Moreover, the evacuation itself was biased. Lifeboats were first filled with women and children from the first and second classes. Many lifeboats were launched with empty seats, while hundreds of third-class passengers were still struggling to reach the deck. This class-based prioritization in the face of disaster was a stark reminder of the rigid social stratifications of the era. Number 8. Heroes of the airwaves. In the midst of the Titanic's tragedy, the wireless operators emerged as unsung heroes. Jack Phillips and Harold Bride, the young men responsible for operating the ship's Marconi wireless telegraph system, displayed extraordinary dedication and courage as the disaster unfolded. Even after the iceberg had struck, Phillips and Bride continued to send out distress messages with unwavering urgency. Their repeated SOS calls pierced the silent night, reaching several ships and alerting the world to the Titanic's dire situation. Despite the chaos and rapidly worsening conditions, they remained at their post, tapping out messages in Morse code, a flickering beacon of hope in the darkness. Their efforts were instrumental in the rescue of the survivors. The RMS Carpathia, responding to their distress calls, steamed through the night to aid the stricken vessel. The operators' tireless work in the face of imminent danger exemplified selflessness and professional dedication. The bravery of Phillips and Bride is a stirring reminder of the human spirit's resilience. Jack Phillips tragically did not survive the night, succumbing to the cold after the ship sank. Harold Bride, though injured, survived and later gave vivid accounts of their efforts. Number 9. Tragedy of the youngest passengers. The Titanic disaster indiscriminately claimed the lives of many, but the loss of the youngest passengers was particularly heart-wrenching. Of the 109 children aboard the Titanic, 53 tragically lost their lives. This loss is a harrowing reminder of the disaster's indiscriminate nature and the vulnerability of its youngest passengers. The children on the Titanic came from all walks of life, from the offspring of affluent families in first class to the children of immigrants in third class, dreaming of a new life in America. The tragedy of their loss is magnified by the fact that many could have been saved. The strict adherence to the women and children first policy in the first and second class sections did not uniformly extend to the third class, where most of the children were located. Hindered by physical barriers and delayed awareness of the ship's dire situation, many third-class children were unable to reach the lifeboats in time. The high death rate among these innocent lives paints a somber picture of the Titanic's final hours. It underscores not only the tragic loss of young life, but also the harsh realities of class divisions and the inadequacies of the ship's safety measures and evacuation protocols. Number 10. Music until the end. As the Titanic faced its final hours, an unexpected and haunting melody resonated through the chaos. The ship's band, led by Wallace Hartley, chose to play music in the face of impending doom. These 8 musicians, initially performing to soothe anxious passengers, became emblematic of courage and composure as the ship sank. The band gathered in the first-class lounge and later moved to the deck, playing popular tunes of the day. Their music served as a calming influence amidst the growing panic. There are varying accounts of their final song, with some survivors recalling the hymn, "Nearer, My God, to Thee," symbolizing peace and resignation to fate. None of the band members survived the sinking, but their decision to play until the end remains a powerful testament to human resilience and the soothing power of music. Their selfless act provided a glimmer of calm and dignity during the most desperate hours. The legacy of the Titanic's musicians is one of bravery and the enduring spirit of humanity in the face of overwhelming tragedy. Number 11. The loss of the elite. The Titanic's passenger list read like a who's who of the early 20th century's elite. Among the wealthy and influential individuals on board, the tragedy claimed the lives of several notable figures, leaving a mark on the world's social and economic landscape. John Jacob Astor IV, one of the richest men in the world, was returning from his honeymoon with his young wife, Madeline. Despite the opportunity to escape on a lifeboat due to his wife's pregnancy, Astor chose to stay behind and perished in the sinking. His death sent shockwaves through high society and the business world. Benjamin Guggenheim, a mining magnate, embraced his fate with dignified acceptance. He and his valet changed into evening wear, with Guggenheim reportedly declaring, "We are dressed in our best and are prepared to go down like gentlemen." Isidor Strauss, co-owner of Macy's department store, and his wife Ida were also among the prominent casualties. In a poignant display of love and loyalty, Ida refused a place on a lifeboat, choosing instead to remain with her husband, saying, "Where you go, I go." Number 12, a missed opportunity for safety. One of the Titanic's lesser-known yet critical moments was the cancellation of a lifeboat drill, a decision that might have had far-reaching consequences. Scheduled for April 14, 1912, the same day as the iceberg collision, this drill could have potentially saved more lives by better preparing the crew and passengers for the evacuation. The reasons for canceling the drill remain unclear, with speculation ranging from Captain Edward Smith wanting a Sunday rest day to perhaps a simple oversight. However, the absence of this drill meant that many crew members and passengers were unfamiliar with the lifeboat launching procedure and the location of their assigned lifeboats. This lack of preparedness was evident during the chaotic evacuation. Confusion reigned, with many lifeboats being launched well below capacity because passengers and crew were unsure of safety protocols. The drill could have instilled a better sense of urgency and order, possibly leading to a more efficient use of the lifeboats and saving more lives. Number 13. The Tale of the Last Survivor. Milvina Dean, the youngest passenger aboard the Titanic, holds a unique place in history as the ship's final survivor. Just 2 months old when the disaster struck, her survival story is one of the most poignant. Dean's family was emigrating to Kansas, where her father hoped to open a tobacconist shop. The family had originally booked passage on another ship, but were transferred to the Titanic due to a coal strike. When the Titanic collided with the iceberg, her father felt the impact and, realizing the danger, woke the family. He took Milvina, her mother, and brother to the lifeboats, ensuring their safety. Milvina, her mother, and brother survived, being lowered into Lifeboat 10. Tragically, her father did not survive. His body never recovered. The Dean family returned to England, where Milvina grew up without any memory of the disaster, but with its legacy ever present in her life. Number 14. Luxury amidst disaster. Amidst the backdrop of the Titanic's impending tragedy was the unparalleled luxury that defined its first-class experience. This opulence was a showcase of the Edwardian era's peak of extravagance and comfort. The first-class section was designed to rival the finest hotels, a floating palace of elegance and luxury. Passengers in first class enjoyed sumptuous suites, some equipped with private promenades, lavish furnishings, and ornate decorations. The grand staircase, which descended through 7 decks, became an iconic symbol of the Titanic's luxury, embodying the grandeur of the ship. Gourmet dining was offered in the first-class dining saloon, where passengers dined on elaborate 10-course meals. Amenities included a swimming pool, a rarity at the time, a fully equipped gymnasium, Turkish baths, and a squash court. Even the smallest details, from the china and cutlery used in the dining rooms to the artwork adorning the walls, were of the highest quality and craftsmanship. Number 15. Ignored warnings. In the lead-up to the Titanic disaster, a series of iceberg warnings were tragically overlooked or not given the urgency they required. The Titanic received several wireless messages from other ships about ice in the area, but these warnings did not result in any significant change in the ship's course or speed. Captain Edward Smith did receive these warnings, but it's believed that the perceived infallibility of the Titanic may have led to a certain degree of complacency. The ship was steaming at near full speed in a region known for icebergs under a moonless sky. This overconfidence was a fatal error. The Titanic's radio operators, busy with transmitting passenger messages, might have not fully grasped the severity of the ice warnings. Moreover, the ship's lookouts were not equipped with binoculars, which could have possibly helped in spotting the iceberg sooner. Number 16. Rescue delayed. A critical element in the Titanic tragedy was the nearby SS Californian, whose response to the disaster was marred by delays and miscommunication. The Californian was the closest ship to the Titanic when it struck the iceberg. yet it failed to come to its aid in time. This failure was a result of a series of unfortunate events and misunderstandings. Earlier that evening, the Californian had warned the Titanic about the ice field. However, later, when the Californian's wireless operator tried to communicate further, he was rebuffed by the Titanic's operator, who was busy transmitting passenger messages. Subsequently, the Californian's wireless was turned off for the night. When the Californian's crew saw flares from the Titanic, they were not interpreted as distress signals. The ship's captain, Stanley Lord, was woken but reportedly did not grasp the urgency of the situation. The Californian remained stationary, its wireless silent, while the Titanic slowly sank just miles away. Number 17. The Carpathia's rescue mission. In contrast to the Californian, the RMS Carpathia became a symbol of hope and heroism. Receiving the Titanic's distress calls in the early hours of April 15th, Captain Arthur Rostron of the Carpathia immediately sprang into action. He turned his ship around and steamed full speed towards the Titanic's last known position, braving dangerous ice fields in the dark. The Carpathia's crew prepared for the survivors' arrival, making ready blankets, food, and medical supplies. Despite the challenging conditions, Captain Rostron's decisive leadership and the crew's efforts ensured that the Carpathia was able to reach the Titanic's survivors in about 4 hours after the sinking. The rescue operation was a race against time and nature. As the Carpathia navigated through icy waters, its crew diligently scanned the horizon for lifeboats. Upon arrival, the crew worked tirelessly to bring aboard the survivors, a task complicated by the cold and the survivors' weakened condition. Number 18. Treasures lost to the depths. When the Titanic sank, it took with it not only lives, but also a treasure trove of artifacts, personal belongings, and commercial goods. These items, now resting at the bottom of the North Atlantic, provide a poignant glimpse into the lives of those on board and the era itself. The ship carried everything from personal effects like jewelry, clothing, and letters to commercial cargo, including fine china, food items, and even automobiles. Among these lost items were also works of art, valuable documents, and antiques. Wealthy passengers had brought with them luxurious items, some of historical and monetary significance. The cargo manifest listed items like leather goods, barrels of oysters, and even a case of opium. These lost treasures have a story of their own, embodying the personal narratives and cultural richness of the early 20th century. They lie in the deep as silent witnesses to the tragedy, evoking a bygone era's elegance and the human stories intertwined with the Titanic's ill-fated journey. Number 19. Discovering the wreck. The wreck of the Titanic remained undiscovered for over 70 years, lying in its deep-sea grave since the 1912 disaster. It wasn't until September 1, 1985, that a joint American-French expedition, led by oceanographer Robert Ballard, finally located the wreck. This discovery marked a significant moment in maritime history. The Titanic was found at a depth of about 12,500 feet, about 370 miles southeast of Newfoundland. The exploration revealed the ship split in two, with its bow and stern lying about a third of a mile apart on the ocean floor. The discovery offered the first visual confirmation of the ship's catastrophic end and provided valuable insights into the events of that fateful night. Finding the Titanic's wreck captured the world's imagination and reopened public interest in the tragedy. It also sparked debates about the preservation of the site as a memorial and the ethical implications of salvaging artifacts from the wreck. The discovery of the Titanic remains a testament to human curiosity and the ongoing quest to understand our past. Number 20. Titanic's enduring legacy. The sinking of the Titanic left an indelible mark on history, resonating far beyond its time as a symbol of human ambition, tragedy, and resilience. Its story has permeated culture, inspiring countless books, films, and documentaries, each exploring different facets of the disaster. The Titanic's legacy is a complex tapestry of historical significance, cultural fascination, and poignant human stories. Historically, the disaster led to significant changes in maritime safety regulations, including the establishment of the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea, SOLAS, in 1914. These reforms have undoubtedly saved countless lives, making the Titanic's tragedy a catalyst for improved safety at sea.